Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I created for this month's Stretch the Sketch. And in Stretch the Sketch, we take a 12 by 12 inch sketch and we either stretch it into a larger format or we shrink it into a smaller format. For today's layout, I'm shrinking the sketch. This piece of paper is 6¼ inches by 8½ inches, and it fits into a small album. I have been working on an album about myself that I created in response to taking a class with Janet Fritz from Galaxy Girl Creations. It's an album about myself. It's mainly filled with journaling. But of course, I'm making some scrapbooking layouts to go along with each of the little stories I wrote in response to each of the prompts for the class. I cut a piece of heavyweight white cardstock and I coated it with some white gesso. I spread out some black paints and added some water to it. And now I'm using different things around my scrapbooking room and making some circles on the page to go along with the circles that are in the sketch. So you could see that I used some rolls. I tried using a toilet paper roll, but it was too thin. I find that the rolls that go in the center of tin foil and things like that, those are a little bit thicker. So I hold on to those and I keep them in my craft room. I also use the top to a spray bottle, and right now I'm using the top to a magic marker. In addition to using different sizes of tools so that the circles will be different sizes, I also want to make sure that all the circles don't look the same. I want some to look darker than others, and I also, within a particular circle, want some of the circles to be darker on one side than the other. I just want a lot of variation. So in some cases, I'm pressing down really hard. In some cases, I'm just pressing really lightly. In some cases, I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on one side of the tool that I'm using so that it'll be darker on one side and lighter on the other. And sometimes I just make a half circle. And I think that that variation makes the circles look more interesting. I added a couple of circles that for some reason just did not make me happy. So I went in with some water and a paper towel and I removed them. Because there's gesso on the paper, it's very easy to do that. In the sketch, there's a clear separation between the two groups of circles, so I wanted to make sure that I had the same look on my layout. That's why I wanted to cover up some of those circles that are in the middle. And then there was also a circle on the bottom that I was interested in fading out a little bit. I didn't necessarily want to get rid of it, but I thought I would put some gesso over it and fade it out. Although later on, I ended up adding a circle there anyway. Right now, I thought the circle looked a little out of place and it didn't look like it was part of the rest of the cluster. But then later on, when I added my photo and the embellishments on, I felt that something was needed in that space. So I guess I just don't know, or I can't be sure where to add things until I have the other elements on the page. And sometimes I go back and adjust, and I do that with this layout. I'm adding some black splatters. I'm just using the same black acrylic paint that I used before, and I watered it down a little bit more. And now I'm going back in and cleaning up that space again between the two clusters of circles. And then I went in and added a few more of those black acrylic paint splatters to both of the clusters on the layout. I was thinking that the background might look nice with a little bit of stamping on it. I'm adding some type stamping to the layout. I'm sorry, I don't know who the manufacturer was for this stamp, but it's a fairly common type of stamp that has some words written on it. You could see that there are letters, but you really can't read the words that are stamped. And I use some Staz On Ink in jet black. I know that I'm going to be adding some sprays to the background, so I wanted to use an ink that wouldn't smear when I added sprays on top of it. This layout is going to go with journaling that tells about how I've always loved creative hobbies my whole life. In this photo, I'm standing next to a painting that I made at an art show that my school district has each year for the faculty. And I thought that this photo would be a good illustration of how throughout my life, even if I put aside a particular hobby, whether it's painting or creating miniatures or scrapbooking for a short time, I always return to it because I do really love being creative and the creative process. It's just always going to be part of my life. I certainly hope. Well, I'm adding some sprays to the background. I'm using some Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists. I'm using Forest Sun, Turquoise Blue, and Amethyst. So the color scheme is turquoise, reddish purple, and then a deep yellow color. And I got this color scheme from Pinterest. If there's ever a certain color that you want to use on a layout, but you're not sure what colors to use with it, I personally find that Pinterest is a great source for that. I'll just put in reddish purple color scheme, and then there are a number of different choices that will come up, and I can choose whichever one I like the best. So I thought that these three colors really went nicely together, and I'm using the packaging technique, and I'm only putting the sprays near the circles that I stamped, and I'm trying to continue to leave that middle area the way it is and leave it white. And for this layout, my goal was not to saturate the background with sprays. I wanted there to be some white spaces in between where the areas of color were. So I'm putting a small amount of color for the most part on the layout, and I'm just touching the plastic to the paper. I'm not really squishing it all down and trying to make large areas of color. And I continue to work hard to keep that area in the center clean. Right now I'm using a paper towel and just cleaning up a few little spots of color. And then I take some water and I sprinkle it over the top of the sprays, and then I roll a piece of paper towel across the top, and that helps to lift up some of the color. For some reason, it didn't lift up a ton of color this time. Maybe I didn't add the sprinkles of water as many times as I usually do, but I was pretty happy with the way the color came out on this layout. So here's my photo. I backed it on some white cardstock and then again on some black cardstock. I was going to use a color, but I decided to just go with the black and white matting around the photo and let the color just be in the background. I had a lot of trouble getting the ATG adhesive to go on the foam. I used some fun foam. I just wanted to pop up the photo a little bit. Sometimes it goes on really easily, but not today. But I did finally get enough adhesive on there to hold the photo down to the page. I don't add too many embellishments to the layout. I had a couple of stickers that I've had in my stash for a really long time that I thought would go along with the theme here. So I fussy cut out this paintbrush from some Karen Foster What an Artist stickers. I did that earlier in the video. And then I also wanted to incorporate this little squiggle line of paint. And I like the idea of the squiggle of paint being at the end of the paintbrush, so it looks like the paintbrush is making a line of paint, but I don't end up keeping it like that. I was thinking that I needed a few more circles on the layout, so I stamped a couple more. And then I also did a little bit more stamping with that same stamp that I used earlier. Sometimes I add too much and sometimes I don't add enough, so of course you can always go back and add a little bit more. And in this case, until I had the photo attached down to the page, I wasn't 100% sure about how much mixed media I wanted to have below the photo. And this time when I go back in with that cap, I'm mainly making partial circles. I was really trying to make them look different from some of the other circles that were already down there on the layout. I know I'm going to use those stickers on the layout, but I wasn't feeling good about where they were placed, so I thought I would just take them off for now and think about it for a little while. I punched out some photo corners, I inked the edges and attached them down to the photo. I'm not going to end up using those photo corners though, and you'll see why in a little bit. I did want to add a title. I'm going to write love to create, but I'm going to use some hearts for the word love instead of writing the word love out. I'm using these Felicity Jane letters. They didn't say they were stickers on them, and they really didn't stick, so I'm not sure if they were supposed to stick, but I really liked the font, and I thought that these were a good size for this layout, so I'm picking out the letters that I need, and then I just roughly position them on camera, and then later on I go back and I straighten them up and I glue them down off camera. It takes me a really long time, and it's really not fun to watch. I'm using some Blvd hearts. I put a large black one on the bottom, and then I layer a turquoise one on top, and then I didn't like the way the photo corners were kind of a faded turquoise and that heart was a bright turquoise, so I decided that I was going to remove the blue photo corners and I was going to replace them with these reddish purple photo corners, and I liked that much better. I inked the edges of these photo corners, and then I had to pull off all the blue ones and replace them, but I thought it looked much better in the end. And I think it's interesting how the photo corners are the only pattern paper that are used on this entire layout. I used a scrap from my purple envelope of scraps, and there was this branding strip. It just happened to be just the right color to go along with this layout. And the purple envelope that I have is pretty thin. I don't have a lot of purple scrapbooking paper, so I was really happy that I didn't just throw this away. Some days I might save a piece like this, some days I might throw it away, but luckily I saved it and got to use it on this layout. I'm trying that paintbrush again, and I decided that that squiggle would look nice right underneath the title rather than at the end of the paintbrush. And then I decided to change the paintbrush and put it on the right-hand side of the photo. Now I'm adding some enamel dots to the layout. I'm just going to add them on the 4 photo corners and then also in the center of the heart. I used some turquoise and some yellow enamel dots, but once I put the yellow ones down, I decided they looked better than the turquoise ones, so I pulled up the turquoise ones and then made all of the enamel dots on the photo corners yellow. And then I added a black enamel dot to the center of the turquoise heart. Now I'm adding a couple of sentiments in the upper left-hand corner. I looked through this Tim Holtz small talk pad and I found a couple of sentiments that I thought went well. One says, live, create, tell the story. One says, I just want to make nice things. And the other says, things take time. And that completes this layout, and here are some close-ups. As always, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed watching it. Please take a look in the description box for links to all the other scrapbookers who are creating layouts using the same sketch this month. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I will see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.